This episode was a top-tier episode, especially for the end of the first cour of this season, with how it started as a peaceful time before turning into a, nightmare, and ending in a way where we can say our boy Natsuki Subaru has this handled. For the start of this episode, it was the meeting related more of what the witches' cult's demands are, and that, they basically have most of them on hand. But it was revealed here that Otto had gotten the Tome of Wisdom during the events of the first episode. And, Priscilla's arrival had also kind of caused an interesting thing, because I just posted a video in regards to Al, but him acting like this, similar to how Subaru would act with Amelia, is suspicious as hell, but not the main thing I want to focus on in this episode particularly. In regards to the private conversation between Otto and Subaru, it's interesting that Otto distrusts Roswell for the most part, and probably the most out of the entire Amelia camp, anticipating that he's got some plan up his sleeve, perhaps something from his Tome of Wisdom had told him to focus on before it was destroyed. It's a valid point, since Roswell without the book is still a threat, someone who can still scheme up some plan for their own benefit, with his main goal being to revive a kidnap. Even though Subaru does also distrust Roswell, and so does, everyone from the Amelia camp, maybe not Ram. Anyway, he and Amelia, Subaru and Amelia, had acknowledged that although they distrust him, they still need his strength. His name alone is pretty influential. And this is something Otto understands. This conversation would be cut by Wilhelm, who takes Subaru to see Krush. Though before moving to that conversation, I just love the Otto and Subaru bromance. The two are quite literally an iconic duo. And you know that no matter what happens, the two trust each other. It's just amazing to see. Now with Krush, it is really sad seeing her in, a devastating state, showing us a glimpse of what could have happened to Subaru if it wasn't for the Mobby's curse he got in Season 1. What's worse is that the best healer, Felix, can't fix this to someone he deeply cares about. That is very depressing. Though something interesting happens with Subaru being able to, from the looks of it, take the dragon blood that Capella had infected Krush. And that's honestly interesting, though a slight problem for Super since he's taking in all of that. And I'm not sure if he took all of the dragon blood from Krush, since she does kind of look back to normal-ish. But either way, it's cool to see Subaru sacrifice himself in a way to help someone else, especially when that's a royal candidate that's against the one he's following. Shows just the kind of person he is, a good person. The next section is a talk between Wilhelm and Subaru, giving Subaru and us, the audience, on the two cultists that gave them such a hard time a few episodes ago. The two are Korgan from Wallachia and Wilhelm's wife, Theresia von Estrella, both warriors who were dead and are apparently back to life. This information is important since having Theresia back in Wilhelm's life is definitely going to cause some conflicts for him, since now a family member is involved, a very close one at that, making this both a personal fight and a slight hindrance to strike them down. And we get more Estrella lore with how the divine protection of the Master Swordsman is inherited, and how when Reinhardt got it, it was during the time where Theresia was dealing with the White Whale, which led to poor Reinhardt to get blamed for her death. Now, Wilhelm doesn't want to tell Reinhardt that his grandmother is out there fighting for the witches' cult, since that could cause some issues, and wishes that he be the one to resolve that matter. I'm sure that when a character does this, the truth always comes to light, but aside from that, we return to the meeting room with effectively telling us, the audience, who is going after which Sin Archbishop. Priscilla and Liliana will go after Wrath, which this whole scene had two things. One being that it's funny how Priscilla manages to convince Liliana to join her by essentially insulting her song, saying that they probably have lost their touch and she doesn't need a loser, which funnily enough that causes Liliana to get mad and to accept joining Priscilla, since her songs are for sure a counter to Wrath's authority ability. Now, the second thing is confirming that Liliana has a divine protection that can assist with this was done because Reinhardt requested for a divine protection, and he got it. And I only have one word to say to that. What? So this man can ask for divine protections. So that is, man, I don't want to go into that because that is a bombshell of a thing. Now, he can't just ask whatever the fuck he wants, from what I'm aware of, but still, that alone just proves that Reinhardt is the most broken character in ReZero, next to Subaru with his return by death. Anyway, back to who's going after who. Wilhelm and Garfield going after Lust to mainly deal with the two cultists. Garfield having the interesting knowledge of knowing his opponent to be Kurgan after everyone's informed of Lust being able to bring dead warriors to serve her. Now Garfield has a score to settle with him, since he, along with the cultist Teresia, were responsible for harming Mimi. And Wilhelm also needs to go there to face off against his late wife. Funny that Reinhardt was essentially going to take his grandfather's stead, since he can tell that something was off, to which Wilhelm denies this kind of request from his grandson. Now, Reinhardt was assigned to go with Subaru to take on Regulus, the strongest Sin Archbishop, which is intriguing to have the strongest knight going off to fight Greed, the strongest Sin Archbishop. Quite a fitting thing, if you ask me. And lastly, for Gluttony, Ricardo and Julius from the Anastasia camp are going to take on that task. And to cap off this section, I love that Subaru declares that they will be the victors, because, you know, it's always cool to see Subaru giving the morale stuff. Before we move on to one of the best scenes of this episode, Emilia and Regulus. This whole scene was magnificent in the sense of showing how shallow, pathetic man like Regulus, who has no real grasp of love and marriage, being compared to someone like Emilia, that although she doesn't understand like love in a sense different to Regulus, she does understand that there's a big meaning when two people marry each other, and rejects Regulus for her knight, Natsuki Subaru. It was funny seeing Regulus Corneas mad, losing his ever-living fucking mind, threatening his wives that if any of them move, it's over for them, and then proceeds to get mad at Emilia's amazing speech of sorts, rejecting the Sin Archbishop of Greed. This gave me a smile, especially when Reinhardt and Subaru crashed the wedding with a funny little banter on how they both kicked the door, but Reinhardt's is sent flying and crashing onto Regulus, while Subaru's is just, it only opens, which shows how badass Reinhardt it can be. But still, it was badass of the two standing in front of the church, like in the entrance, announcing themselves to Regulus, and how these two are going to not only end this pathetic man and his career, but beat the ever-living shit out of him. Overall, another 100 out of 10 banger, with an amazing way of ending the first cour. I honestly can't wait for the second cour to cover what is essentially the counterattack portion of this arc, where the heroes gain the advantage on the witch's cult. I'll make a video covering the whole cour, this whole first cour, soon. So be sure to subscribe so you can be notified when that video comes out. But man, oh man, I love ReZero. I got ideas actually for some videos related to ReZero, so also subscribe for that. But man, I got something cooking, and I'll just hint out. The first video that's going to go into the limelight is our favorite dead assassin that only appears here and there this season. But overall, I love this episode. It was genuinely amazing. It's the best way to end it and leave us off with a great finale. For at least this cour, of course.